Roland Martin here with Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from San Antonio at the 109th NAACP National Convention. National Convention began yesterday here in San Antonio with the NAACP AXO competition. A little bit earlier, they actually had the awarding of all of the various first, second, and third place. It was a 40th annual NAACP AXO competition. It was founded by the late journalist Vernon Jarrett, of course, and so we are here for their public program. And so this, in many ways, actually kicks off the convention. And so even though yesterday they had their ribbon cutting, their opening news conference, this is the public program. Yesterday, I moderated a session dealing hashtag Black Votes Matter. And so if you actually see back there, you see defeat, hate, vote. That is the actual theme of this particular conference being held here in San Antonio in Texas, where folks have been fighting voter suppression in Texas for quite a long time. Now, also, like I say, the program is just starting. Who you hear singing is the NAACP choir. And so they have actually been entertaining this audience for the past 20 or 30 minutes or so. The convention kicks off with a speech every Sunday night by the NAACP chairman. This time it will be Leon Russell, of course, who took the place of Rosalind Block, who was named chairman emeritus. She's still on the NAACP national board. There have been lots of changes with the NAACP since last year. There were new CEO, Derek Johnson, who previously was the head of the Mississippi State Conference of the NAACP. And so we will be, of course, a little bit earlier on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We actually played the interview that I did with him last week at Essence Festival. Now, he will be, of course, sharing his opening speech tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we'll have that for you as well. Also speaking at this convention is the former governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick. He'll be speaking at noon tomorrow. It's also going to be a public program put on by the Youth and College Division of the NAACP, led by, of course, Tiffany Lofton. You often saw her on my TV One show, News One Now. And so you actually see her. So there are a number of people who are going to be participating in that as well. And so we're going to be bringing to you a lot of different interviews with folks all across the country who are here. Nearly 6,000 to 7,000 people are here for the NAACP convention. As you, we had the shot earlier. As you can see, they're all streaming in right now. There have been other sessions taking place in the NAACP exhibit hall called the NAACP Experience. And so folks are coming in right now for the beginning of this particular program as well. The NAACP is at a critical juncture, of course, in its history as it has new leadership, but also as they prepare for civil rights in the age of Donald Trump. For the second time, Donald Trump has refused to attend the NAACP convention. Donald Trump has not even met with the NAACP leadership. In fact, Donald Trump has not had a single meeting with any folks from the civil rights organizations. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, he has met with folks like Christian Clark, Lawrence Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, Sherlyn Ifill, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, as well as National Urban League, NAACP, National Action Network, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and Rainbow Push. Well, Donald Trump has not done so. And, of course, folks have been highly critical of his leadership as president, his refusal to deal with the issue of civil rights. And so what we want to do right now, is talk about this whole issue of civil rights. And I'm going to welcome right now, folks, from Virginia, Congressman Bobby Scott, who's going to join us right now as well. He is here attending the convention. And so I want to welcome Congressman Scott. Congressman, how you doing? Good seeing you. Do me a favor, take a seat right here. So, Congressman, we're actually live streaming right now, and so I just ask you first, real quick. This is the second time Donald Trump has refused to speak to this convention. He refuses to address the issue of civil rights.
Education isn't even fully staffing the department, their civil rights division. They're cutting back civil rights, voting rights, every kind of different way you can. They are addressing civil rights, and our response has got to be to vote. The system isn't fair. They're doing voter suppression. They're doing gerrymandering. And our only defense, we can't count on the Supreme Court anymore. You know you can't count on the executive branch anymore. We got to make sure that the legislative branch reflects our views, and that means you got to vote in November.
And of course, we're here in Texas, where federal courts 5 different times said Texas voter ID was discriminatory. The Obama administration sided with the plaintiffs. The Trump administration comes in, they side with the state of Texas. They are defending discriminatory voter ID across the country.
And our response has got to be to vote in November. We can't do anything about the Trump administration and the way they're going. We can do something about the direction of the United States Congress. We haven't had any hearings to speak of on the taking children from their parents because the majority doesn't want to have hearings. They have an education bill that actually makes student loans more expensive to pay off. I mean, what kind of direction is that? They're trying to take away people's health care, doing nothing on criminal justice reform. Our only response has got to be, even though it's not fair, make sure we vote and make sure the legislative branch responds to these crises.
I got to ask you, what do you make of the Trump's DOJ decision to reopen the Emmett Till case as a result of Carolyn Bryant admitting she lied about Emmett Till?
I think it's a step forward. Everybody knows that justice delayed is justice denied, but it's better than no justice at all. And so I think reopening that case, in light of the fact that I understand one of the guys has admitted to it, the other lady admitted she lied, so why is not, this case should be reopened. That's just one case, though. What about all criminal justice? They're talking about inflicting draconian mandatory minimums when not necessary as a matter of policy. There's a lot this administration is doing wrong, and we can put a check on it if we have the right people elected in November.
When you talk about, again, you see the slogan NAACP in terms of combating hate. We're seeing every day black folks cutting grass, having a coupon at a CVS. White folks are just calling the cops for any reason whatsoever. I mean, there is just this consistent attack on African Americans.
Well, the response has got to be to vote so that we can pass legislation and respond to legislation and at least have hearings. We haven't had any hearings to talk about what's going on in health care, what's going on in education, what's going on in criminal justice, what's going on in voting rights, what's going on with taking parents from children, children from parents at the border. We need some hearings. There's stuff going on in the administrative branch where all you got to do is invite the people and say, what's going on? And you'll have people who will have to admit, I told them not to do that. Right. There are people in the Department of Homeland Security that told them not to do zero tolerance because children, they weren't prepared to deal with the children. They knew that going in, and we need to have hearings to expose the things going on that are going on. And the only way to do that, vote in November.
Last question for you, just your response to the indictment of 12 Russian intelligence officers and how it is hard for me to even call him president because a president of the United States would respond in the affirmative against Russia and Putin. He has attacked President Obama. He has attacked Hillary Clinton. He literally has said nothing about the attack on the American election system.
Well, my strategy has been to let Mueller do his job. He's had indictment after indictment, several guilty pleas. When he makes his report, we'll know what it is. Obviously, there was Russian interference with the election. He'll let us know what the facts are, what the evidence shows.
But he should do it. But he should finish his job.
He should finish. He should take the time to get it done right. You had a complaint from one gentleman who was running the Benghazi thing for a year and a half, didn't find anything, telling it's time to wrap the thing up. Well, he didn't wrap his thing up.
Right.
Let's let him do his job. Let him do it right. But in the meanwhile, what we can do, vote in November.
All right, Congressman Bobby Scott, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Roland, thank you.
Virginia, I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, folks, thanks a lot. We're going to slide in my good friend next, take the Congressman place. He is Mark Thompson. You hear him, of course, Sirius XM Radio. Before that, folks heard in D.C. area on WOL. Mark, how's it going?
Fine, brother. Good to see you, Roland.
Good to see you as well,
What's
Doc.
happening down
All
here
good?
In your neck of the woods, sort of.
Yeah, born and raised in Houston. It's over not even about 3 miles, about 3 hours away.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you this, Anthony. Do me a favor, and I want everybody at home to understand this. Do me a favor. I want you to actually take that camera there, and I want you to pan left. Now, folks, this is the media dais. This is the media dais, and I want you to see who's not here. I want you to see who's not here. If you want to understand why I'm launching Roland Martin Unfiltered on my daily digital show September 4th, it's because of this. Here you have the nation's largest and oldest civil rights organization in the country. Here you have major civil rights issues taking place all across the country. And you do not have any other national media outlets that are here. And Mark, this just speaks to why we have to have our own. Your show, Sirius XM, Joe Madison, of course, again, when I'm launching September 4th, I made it clear we're going to be here. We're going to be live streaming stuff. We cannot afford to expect other folk to cover and tell our story.
Never have, never will. And let me commend you on what you're doing on September 4th. That's a big undertaking. It takes a lot of courage. Stepping out.
Money. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later, folks.
Well, but I'm going to get to it now. Stepping out on faith. Folks, we have to support our own. We have to be able to tell our stories and tell our version of our story because nobody else will. And there's so many things happening. We just had another major police shooting in Chicago on just last night.
Police attacking journalists.
Right.
Beating folks with batons.
Right. And I'm looking, you panned. Are we the only two media here at this particular moment? I think we are.
I haven't. I mean, there are some other folks who I've seen. But I have not seen. Earlier, the San Antonio newspaper was interviewing Anthony Anderson.
Okay.
I saw a couple of other outlets, but I have not seen a lot of media folks.
Yeah, and there's so much to be covered, so much to be done. Always important things to discuss at the convention. Tell you what I did, as I always do. I pre-recorded interviews today with I went to the Branch Presidents Council meeting, spoke with branch presidents because the NAACP's strength has always been local, really.
Right, 2,200 national,
right.
2,200 branches, not the national office in Baltimore.
Right.
It's the branches, all volunteer.
And there have been local struggles that are not reported at all. They don't want to cover the national, let alone the local, the mainstream media, that is. And so hearing what some of these local branches are dealing with, the 5 sisters who were kicked off the golf course in Pennsylvania.
Right.
One of them is the president of the York, Pennsylvania branch of the NAACP. And they didn't know who they were messing with when they did that. So, we've got to get these stories out. It's very important that we support our own media, we support our press, and we support Roland. I don't know the mechanism to give or subscribe to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And again, our target goal is simple. We want 20,000 people who are contributing a minimum of $50. Now, there are some other people, they've already given more. Some have given 100, some have given more than that.
Right.
What that does is that raises $1 million. That's important because now we can travel. Now we can come to places like this here. Now we can go to other conventions. I mean, because the thing, and I'm telling you, I've been reading. Gerald Horns has a book out on Claude Burnett and the Negro Associated Press. I'm reading also a book on Ethel Payne, Alice Dunnigan. I got Robert Abbott's book as well. And were it not for black newspapers,
That's right.
Were it not for black newspapers, we would not have been informed during those dark periods. And I keep telling the folk, shows get canceled, people come and go, but we got to make sure that we always have ours.
And hey, listen, some of these black press have been around for 100 years. Some of the same newspapers, they honored branches today, individual branches in the NAACP that are 100 years old this year. So these local branches have been going for 100 years. I can say this as part of Sirius XM, we're just subscriber base. People have to subscribe to hear me. Y'all ought to give money, subscribe, whatever the model is, to support what Roland is doing, and I truly hope people will do that.
When you talk about being here, we talk about these branches and what is happening across the country. You're right. I've run into people. I ran to the brother. He said, "Man, you had me on when John Crawford was shot and killed."
Right.
When I think, matter of fact, if I think back to the 4 years of News One Now and TV One, I mean, we had any number of NAACP folks from Baton Rouge to Minneapolis to all over the place. And the thing that I keep trying to tell people, and it always amazes me how people, I had a brother tweet me the other day, NAACP ain't done nothing for black people. Here's the reality. There is no other black organization that when somebody black gets in trouble anywhere in America, there is no other organization who they call first.
Yeah.
That's just I'm not saying they're perfect. Right. I'm not saying they're going to always be there, but it's just a reality. This is who they call first.
Well, and because of the infrastructure that it has, and even the brothers who say that NAACP doesn't do anything, they're the first ones NAACP call when they get in trouble on the job. If you don't believe it, ladies and gentlemen, just go volunteer. If your NAACP has an office, go volunteer to be a receptionist one day because they need volunteers. Just go spend a couple hours and you hear the phone ringing.
Let's say this again. This is a volunteer-based organization.
That's right.
A lot of people really think these folks are out here getting paid full-time salaries. No, these people who have been, you meet people, man, they said, man, I've been leading in 30, 40 years. They have not gotten paid for that.
No.
I know people, it's very easy to attack NAACP. It's very easy to attack Urban League, Rainbow Push, National Action Network, all these groups. But the reality is they are depending on folks, what you just said, who drop by, who give 3, 6 months, a year, 5, 10, 20 years of their time.
We're not going to have freedom by way of our organizations or freedom by way of our own media unless all of us sacrifice and volunteer and give a little money. That's very, very important for us to understand, especially in this hour when it seems that everything is being rolled back. We have a Supreme Court justice has been nominated, and they've already begun this process. We talk about other things being rolled back, like Roe, like same-sex marriage and all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is they've already rolled back voting rights, and they're rolling back Brown to the extent that we're having more de facto segregation in America.
Oh, yes.
And that was the landmark case for the NAACP.
This is, and I need people to understand this, what is happening with the Supreme Court, this is by design. The folks that they have hated, they hated the federal court decisions since Brown. They hated what the Fifth Circuit did in pushing Brown through. And so they understood, okay, you know what? We can't have Jim Crow laws, but we can have court decisions. Go back and, folks, I want y'all to go Google this. I want you to go back and read the writings of William Rehnquist, who Kavanaugh praised.
Yeah.
He praised. William Rehnquist actually wrote a legal paper when he was a clerk for Supreme Court Justice that Brown versus Board of Education was unconstitutional.
Yeah.
He wrote that the Civil Rights Act of 64 should not have been passed as well. That's who Kavanaugh
that's who
saw as a mentor.
Analyzes,
And so, and look, the Federalist Society, all those judges they gave to Trump, they were all pre-approved. They knew where they stood on every major issue, and the national media keeps talking about Roe v. Wade, same-sex marriage, but for us, it is affirmative action, it is civil rights laws, it's equal employment, it's all of that, and they are hell-bent on trying to absolutely roll it back.
No, you're right, and so these are the fights NAACP is fighting. The theme of this whole convention is vote, defeat hate, and vote. So that's what has to be done. Folks, we got to walk and chew gum at the same time. We are right back in the place where we were 50 years ago and even before that, where we've got to support our freedom fighter organizations, whatever they are. If you're in the Rainbow, if you're in NAN, if you're in the Urban League, I'm a life member of all of them. And try to support each and every one. And each one has different cultures and does different things. They aren't perfect, but, support, if nothing else, your local branch of the NAACP because you may need them someday.
Hey,
you're going to need this brother too. Support what he's trying to do because this is the wave of the future. We can make our own media. And I would really encourage people to get behind Roland and support what he does. He's going to be bringing us the news every single day from a perspective on television we otherwise wouldn't get.
When you talked about in terms of what is happening, Donald Trump goes to Europe, criticizes immigration there, says how they're losing their culture.
That's right.
He is using the language of white nationalism.
That's right. And as inspired in his role as a Russian agent. And Russia has been, everything he's saying has been aligned. Russia's been pushing in Europe for a number of years, making enemies. He is doing that verbatim. So, we got to fight back against this. The only way we fight back is to do what we've always done, and that is stand up for ourselves.
It's very interesting to me when we had a panel yesterday, hashtag Black Votes Matter, and folks were, and what the panelists said, which is absolutely true. They said, look, we are not saying that voting is the be-all to end-all. What this is, though, is a part of the process. That you can't act as if voting has no place, or, well, let me just wait to see what y'all do, then I'm going to vote. No. You simply cannot. No. And we can't afford to be apathetic by any way, shape, or form. It's very, very urgent that we get involved and what have you. What is happening here and what happens every year, one of the things that inspires me the most is the young people. I mean, a lot of young people that come to NAACP convention, the AXO competition, that's something else that's not covered and reported on. Now, I've challenged myself. I haven't had a chance to do it. I procrastinated on it. One year I'm going to come here and just cover the AXO Roland and lift that up. And a lot of people, because this was the 40th anniversary this year.
That's right.
The 40th anniversary. I say at the outset, it was founded by a black journalist.
Yeah. By
Vernon Jerry.
That's right.
And what happened was earlier. So they had it all yesterday. The awards was today. So I told NAACP people, I said, yo, get us a copy of it, and what we're going to do is we're going to live stream the whole awards presentation so folks can see it, so they can actually see. And I earlier today I interviewed Anthony Anderson. Anthony Anderson participated in AXO, and won it when he was involved in it. And there's so many African Americans, and folks understand this ain't a basketball competition.
No,
this ain't football. No. I mean, this is music, this is storytelling, this is writing, this is poetry, this is science. People don't realize NASA, now I don't know under this dude, but before, they would send their people here and would sign up the winners of the scientific competition, and they've actually had AXO winners who had their experiments on space shuttle missions.
Isn't that something? Yeah. This is an academic Olympics. We don't always hear reporting on the positive things our young people are doing. But that is what is going on here at the NAACP, and it's been going on for, as you said, 40 years. So that's very, very important. And, again, we're not going to hear about that if we don't have brothers like Roland doing the things he's doing and all of us supporting the things that you're doing.
Just a couple more questions for you because, again, they're about to start everything. Now talking at the stage right now is Karen Towns. She's speaking. And so we're going to have her over here. I texted her to come over here and chat with us, but we're going to have her as well. This week, Deval Patrick, he's going to be here as well. Folks are talking about him potentially running for president. I read a report when I came here already. You have moves being made by Senator Elizabeth Warren, by Senator Kamala Harris, by Senator Cory Booker. But also you have some mayors, Gil Garcetti in L.A., Mitchell Andrew, formerly mayor in New Orleans, the mayor in South Bend, Indiana, thinking about running as well. What do you make of what is happening in terms of with the folks who are making those moves? And I'm surprised none of them decided to come here.
Well, actually tonight, Julian Castro is speaking, and he's someone who's thinking about some things. In fact, I know at one time he was
former mayor of San Antonio, former HUD Secretary under Obama.
Right, and he was considered as a running mate for Hillary Clinton at one time. My understanding is that a lot of the senators were invited, but with everything going on back in the Senate with the Supreme Court piece and what's going on with Trump and Putin, people were actually afraid to come down to San Antonio because there are going to be some important votes this week. So they're using that as a logistical piece. Normally, you have a much greater turnout of potential candidates, but this is just getting up and running.
Right.
Next year, of course, everybody's probably going to be coming to the NAACP convention as they always do, and as well they should. But folks are gearing up. It's about time for us to start thinking about what's going to happen.
Last question. Obviously, you now have new leadership of the NAACP. Leon Russell is the chair.
Right.
Derek Johnson is the president. Derek has really been focused on going inside of the NAACP, getting down and dirty, looking at contracts, studying all those different things. Your assessment of his leadership thus far?
I think Derek's doing a great job. I think he stepped into a very, very difficult situation. He was interim. And the NAACP made a decision it needed to even clean up its own house even before it did some big outside search. And that's what they did. And so Derek has stepped into that role. I think he's doing an excellent job. It's going to take some time. He's going to ruffle some feathers in terms of the bureaucracy and the culture in the NAACP. But I think it's high time. The organization in a national place needs to be shaken and reset somewhat. I'm not saying it's been doing a lot wrong, but it's got to get ready for the next generation, and then hopefully younger people will get more involved, want to take over positions, want to get active. People need to get back to realizing the urgency to being a part of an organization like the NAACP. We would not be where we are. The NAACP was centered around lynchings in the early 1900s, and we're seeing lynchings again. Again, what just happened in Chicago last night to that man who was a pillar in the community, my understanding, what I heard earlier this morning, he was a single father raising a 5-year-old daughter, a barber. The NAACP and the work it has always done is as relevant as it has always been. Derek is a good leader for this moment, and I think we all should really continue to get behind it.
Mark, tell folks where they can check you out every day on SiriusXM.
And as always, my brother, thank you for having me, folks. Support Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm supporting it, pushing it on my show, which you can hear every morning, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time on SiriusXM Satellite Radio, SiriusXM Progress, Channel 127.
All right, Mark, I appreciate
my man,
it. Thanks
brother.
so much.
I like this. Got this pink on. Y'all see, because he's going to always do the thing.
Well, I was honored with the Vanguard Award this week from the AKs at their Boulay, so I go ahead and wear the pink.
Yeah, I've been talking about you too, because my ex-wife's brother-in-law is a Q. So my son's 16 now. I didn't know he was thinking about pledging.
Right.
And he says, I might have to. Uncle Allen's a Q. I might pledge Q. I said, no, you can't pledge Q. That's the only reason I'm not an Alpha. Is because I went to Georgetown where we didn't really have fraternities, and I pledged Georgetown basketball. I was one of Big John Thomas's managers, so we couldn't pledge.
Right.
But my grandfather founded the Alphas at Tennessee State University, Nashville, Tennessee. They went over, all the brothers, about 4 of them, Roland, they pledged in the 30s at Meharry Medical College. And then they went back to Tennessee State and got everything chartered and over. So I said to my son, your great-grandfather was an Alpha, so you're going to have to pledge Alpha.
And, of course, your mentor, your good friend.
That's right. Dick Gregory. Sure was. So
also
I said to my son that when he gets ready to pledge, I may go ahead and make that decision myself and cross it over. It's about time. So I was just telling that to somebody else, a brother from Dallas he said, I'm an Alpha like Roland. I said, well, I know about that.
All right,
so
well, tell your son if you need to have a conversation with me, we can look that up. I
love you,
appreciate
brother.
it, Mark. I appreciate
right,
love you, brother.
Thank you,
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Again, folks, we're here at the 109th NAACP convention here in San Antonio. And the thing about, I want to say what Mark was just telling folks about, what I need y'all to understand that is critically important. Many, I've already been looking, and many folks have been posted on Facebook, and they're like, what happened with TV One? Look, this is the deal. TV One canceled, News One out. The show is gone. The show is not coming back. But I'm not waiting for that. I'm not waiting for permission. I'm not waiting for somebody to do something. What I am doing is doing exactly what we're doing right here, building this, making this possible, and that's what the focus has been. And so I think for a lot of folks, don't worry about what somebody else is or isn't doing. So the thing is, what we need to do is just focus on what we are doing. So we're focused on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You can get more details by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And here's what I want all of you who are on YouTube, who are watching, who are on Periscope, who are watching, who are on Facebook, who are watching. I want you to share this stream right now everywhere. I want you to share this with all of your followers. I want you to share this with all of your friends. I want to see that that count. I'm looking at it right now. I'm monitoring our live feed. I want to see that count increase big time because that's what's important for us also to get the word out what is happening here as well. And so I'm going to do this here. We're going to go to the stage. Michael Turner is speaking right now. I want to go to the switch to the stage, and then we're going to come back for an interview right here.
When John Salady traveled to Austin to investigate, he was charged with inciting Negroes against whites. Beaten so badly by a mob led by the county judge and constable, Salady would never recover and succumb to his injuries the next year. Here in San Antonio, activist John A. Grumbles, a wealthy black man who was highly regarded by white civic leaders and well connected to the political machine, read about the work of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He was impressed and inspired by the work being done by the association in other states. He was disturbed by the failure of whites to obey anti-Jim Crow ordinances in his hometown, and so it was his idea that the NAACP might be the catalyst to bring about some justice to the San Antonio black citizens. Mr. Grumbles called together a group of people whom he felt had leadership ability and concern for the conditions that were allowed to exist. That initial meeting included Mr. Grumbles, who would become the branch's first president, Ms. Carol Brooks, Ms. Edna Billups Carter, Mr. J.D. Lowry Sr., Mr. Harold Tarver, Mr. Cal Burton, Mrs. F. Hooks, Reverend Lazarus Richards, and Dr. J.T. Walton. In March 1918, the San Antonio branch was organized with 503 members. This branch focused its energies on the repeated offenses occurring on board railroad Jim Crow coaches. The early work of the San Antonio branch led to a surge in membership from 500 to nearly 1,300 by year's end, making it the largest in the state of Texas. With the unexpected death of Mr. Grumbles, Harold Tarver became branch president. Tarver instituted a program to train black nurses, sought to continue the tradition of independent vote casting, and maintained the cooperation between civil rights groups and civic leaders. Major emphasis was placed on increasing employment for black women. The struggle continued to eliminate employment discrimination in the 1960s, human rights in the 1970s, and racial equality and justice in the 1980s. On this, our first visit to San Antonio, we maintain our unrelenting pursuit of liberty proclaimed by the Founding Fathers in the 1776 Declaration of Independence. Against this backdrop, we've come to San Antonio with heads yet unbowed. We come together tonight to encourage each other and to proclaim renewed progress for our beloved NAACP. In our 109th year as our nation's oldest, baddest, boldest civil rights organization, it is our responsibility to unite our communities and to help them recognize their own power, encourage them to continue to struggle for justice and freedom during this critical year of ongoing change, turmoil, and uncertainty. We come to you under the banner of our theme, Defeat hate, vote. This is our charge as we convene the 109th Annual Convention of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People here in the city of San Antonio. It is my honor to call the 109th Annual Convention of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People to order. At this time, it is most fitting that we pay tribute to Mrs. Minnie Mabry Hill, spouse of San Antonio Branch President Oliver Hill, who passed away May 4th, 2018, at the age of 74. Mrs. Hill and her husband Oliver provided the primary leadership for successfully bringing this 109th convention to San Antonio for the first time in its 109-year history. Now, on a personal note, this is bittersweet because I know she's up looking down on you, Mr. Branch President, on Vice Chair Dukes and myself, because we spent the last 2 years coming here working with the Hills. And I tell you, we would not be here if it was not for Minnie Hill. Ms. Hill was a devoted and diligent civil servant who never let anything slow her down. He has said that she even gave him tasks to complete while she was in the hospital, recovering from a stroke. He emphasized that she was that kind of person who wanted to make sure everything was decently done and in order. City Councilman Cruz Shaw noted that our community was blessed by Mrs. Hill's presence and leadership. We are hurting, but must be strong for Mr. Hill, their children, and grandchildren. He stated that Mrs. Hill's passion for serving the San Antonio community and her fearless advocacy on behalf of the NAACP will live on forever. NAACP National Chairman of the Board, Leon Russell, advised that the selection of San Antonio as the host of the 109th Convention and also on the 100th anniversary of the San Antonio branch was largely because of Mrs. Minnie Hill's determination. And I'm proud to be wearing this special pin that the San Antonio branch has, and they're selling it, and I urge each of you to purchase one to support this phenomenal branch. You don't get to be 100 years old by accident. You get to be there by being strong, living right, and doing right. It is also said that her spirit will shine over our NAACP convention, and we know that it will. Now let's do this for Minnie. Friends, please stand for a moment of silent tribute to Mrs. Minnie Mabry Hill, husband Oliver, children, and grandchildren. May God be with you, and I know she's smiling down upon us. Essentially to our convention are the presiding officers and parliamentarians who will serve, during the preliminary and legislative sessions for the rest of this convention, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I ask that each of you please stand when I call your name. Gary Bledsoe, Austin, Texas. Tevin Ellis, San Antonio, Texas. Aubrey Hooper, Dallas, Texas. Howard
All right, folks,
Jefferson.
welcome back. You, of course, they are mentioning the various delegates, and you just heard him mention Aubrey Hooper of the Dallas NAACP. Well, he's joining me right now, right next to me. Aubrey, how you doing?
I can't complain. How you doing, Roland?
Doing great. You are working with Next Gen.
Absolutely.
So explain to folks who watch exactly what Next Gen is.
So Next Gen is our very intentional opportunity to engage and train the next generation of young leaders of our branches and our state conferences, individuals between the ages of 21 to 35 from across the country.
And again, we often hear a lot of people who say that NAACP is too old, too many old members. But a lot of people really don't understand that a lot of folks got their start in the youth and college division of the NAACP.
Well, I'm one of them. I started as a 9-year-old at the NAACP and now branch president and assistant secretary of the National Board of Directors. So this was really the training ground for my career as well as my advocacy efforts. And so the NAACP is definitely relevant to all generations. And we are very much so committed to preparing the next generation of leaders as well as the current generation.
And when we, what happens here, I mean, first of all, and I know Tiffany Lofton very well. Of course, who now runs the youth and college division of NAACP.
Very dynamic.
You have there are a significant, in essence, there's sort of a convention within a convention, if you will.
Yes.
Because you have the NAACP, but also the youth division, college division. They have their own workshops, their own speakers, things like that.
Absolutely. So again, our youth and college division addresses individuals usually from around 10 to 25, and so they have their own workshops, they have their own schedule, and it really gives them the tools that they need to address the fight on the ground.
Hold tight 1 second. We'll just wait for the prayer.
All people deserve a living wage and safety and security. We just have to keep reminding everyone of the prophetic call. We just have to keep reminding everyone of the idyllic promises made by the founders of our nation, yet to be fulfilled. We just have to keep speaking up and speaking out, making sure all voices are heard and valued. Therefore, we pray. Holy One of Blessing, as we gather here in San Antonio this week, may we be moved to defeat hate by striving to recognize the humanity in every person we encounter. May we find the courage to bear witness to the struggles and triumphs of our lives, but also to listen with open minds and hearts to the perspectives and experiences of others. May this gathering fortify us for the work that lies ahead, encouraging others to find their own voices, inspired to use our vote to express the values and hopes we keep for ourselves, for our communities, and for our country. We are God's witnesses, the servants whom God has chosen. May God bless each of you with open hearts, minds, and spirits, so that this convention is one of uplift, of reflection, and of strength. Amen.
All right, folks, and welcome back. Again, we're talking with Aubrey Hooper of the Dallas NAACP. We're talking about the Next Gen project. What do you, as someone who started this at 9 years old, what would you say to somebody out there whose child isn't involved in the NAACP? why their young person should?
Well, one thing I will say is the NAACP exposed me to things that I never thought that I would have been able to be exposed to. It also gave me an appreciation for my culture, an appreciation for all of the sacrifices that generations before me had done. One of the most interesting experiences of my life that I carry with me was the date June 7th, 1998. And that was the day that James Byrd was killed. And on June 13th, the Texas State Conference and myself, we were down in Jasper. And I can remember walking the 1.5 trail that James Byrd was drew. Mm-hmm. And I was 15 years old. And I could still see blood splatter on the ground. And that has continued to hold me, because I asked the question, how does this happen in America? And so, to all of the things that we see that are happening across the country, how does this still happen in America in 2018? And so the NAACP gives that training to prepare students on how to properly address those, and also how to advocate so that we can change laws, so that we can change policies, and hopefully how we can work to change hearts.
Okay. All right. Well, Aubrey, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks. And so, again, they are first of all, this is for folks who are just tuning in. We're broadcasting from the public program of the NAACP, which, of course, you'll be hearing tonight from the chairman of the NAACP, Leon Russell. And so also there's a partnership that has actually started between the NAACP and the Church of Latter-day Saints. And so one of their elders will be here as well as a special presentation from their choir. And so that's what's taking place tonight. And so we started our anchored coverage of this. We're going to be live streaming events here from San Antonio today, tomorrow, as well as Tuesday. This conference closes with their Sping Iron Medal Dinner, which takes place on Wednesday night. And so we're going to have lots of things to bring to you, lots of interviews as well with other people. And so I'm looking forward to that. And so, of course, right now what is happening is the singing of the Star Spangled Banner. That's what's going on right now. And so then the program will continue. And I anticipate them singing Lift Every Voice and Sing next. So let's just take some of that, and then we'll come back to you in just 1 second.
also give a hand to Gregory Parson on organ and Autumn Foster on piano. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow delegates, it is my pleasure to introduce at this time a number of persons who will bring greetings this evening. I am asking that each limit their greetings to 3 minutes. First, Gary Bledsoe, President of the NAACP's Texas State Conference and member of the National Board of Directors, Austin, Texas, followed by, and I want y'all to give this one a grand welcome, Oliver Hill, President of the San Antonio branch, NAACP, followed by Sandra May, President and CEO of Visit San Antonio, and you must know Visit San Antonio has been very good to us. So give her warm NAACP greetings too. And she will be followed by Elder Jack N. Gerard, Executive Director of Public Affairs Committee of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then Thomas Battles, Chairman, Council of the President's National Panhellenic Council and Grand Power March, Kappa Alpha Psi. They will come in that order. Also, we have an addendum because I am so pleased to be joined this evening by the Castro brothers. Be both the congressman and the former mayor of San Antonio and the secretary of HUD. They will also be bringing greetings at the end. So let's give it up to our state conference president, Gary Bledsoe.
Good evening, NAACP. I bring you greetings from the great state of Texas, all of the many tremendous NAACP units that we have here that go about their work every day, silently, doing the Lord's work, making lives of many people better. I bring you greetings from our Youth and College Division, which is second to none within the nation. I bring you greetings from the great state of Texas that houses the San Antonio branch, which Thurgood Marshall called one of the best branches in the NAACP. I must say that now we are on the shoulders of great people who stood before us. And I think it is so important that we have come to San Antonio for this meeting. Let me say that sometimes history does repeat itself. And this time I believe that we are equipped and have the individuals in place in the National Association to address the issues that confront us. So I'm so proud to say that the issues are there, but we're ready to confront them. Now let me say that I think that all of us must be very proud to be members of the NAACP, because not many people can say that they're members of organizations that have changed the world. And indeed, we have changed the world. We know how things were in this country 60, 70, 80 years ago. It was the insurgents of the NAACP that brought about those changes. But the sad thing is we're about to go through some very significant battles ahead that tell us that those battles, sadly, have to be fought again. We see where forces that seek to suppress us and repress us, that are afraid of our vote, are seeking to do everything that they can to keep us away from the ballot box. And we see where those forces have joined with international forces that are seeking to divide and undermine this nation. And it's like a boxer. You know, when you train for a boxing match, you try to find out, well, if they throw the left uppercut, do they drop their right hand and expose their left jaw? And if they do, then that's an exposure. What we found out with this whole thing in terms of the efforts of Russia to interfere with our election, that they understood that racism is a problem in this nation, and racism is a weakness within this nation. So it's up to the NAACP to again take the lead. It's up to us to go to all the hamlets around this nation and to discuss issues honestly and to bring forth the truth, because as they say, truth crushed earth shall rise again. And we know that in the state of Texas, where we have the history with the NAACP, where we helped make the NAACP because of the terrible things that have happened here, it's important that we be here. Whether it's the 1927 case of Nixon versus Herndon, whether it's the 1944 case of Smith versus Allwright, or the 1950 case of Sweat versus Painter, or whether it's 1916 and Jesse Washington being lynched in Waco and bringing attention to the lynching issue because the lynching occurred with an NAACP official there, and so people were able to film the actual lynching at the time that it occurred. Or whether it was 1918, 100 years ago, we're just 70 miles from here, the NAACP was threatened, and the head of our organization, John Chilady, went to visit with the Texas Attorney General about them trying to get NAACP membership lists, and was beaten near death, and he never went back to the NAACP. That led to James Weldon Johnson becoming the first head of the NAACP of color. So I must say to all of you that we must join together. We must understand that there's a real fight ahead. We must understand that what's occurring in this nation is occurring in the world, and we can't go backwards. It's up to us to stand tall and to be the leader in this movement, because no one, no political party, no one can lead like the NAACP. Thank you for coming to San Antonio and the state of Texas, and I look forward to working with you in the great leadership of this fine organization.
All right, folks, that was Gary Bledsoe, of course, the longtime chair of this Texas State Conference of the NAACP. Also, just some breaking news. Police in Chicago have released the body cam footage. They released the body cam footage of the police officers who shot and killed an armed barber. That has led to various protests, and the protests are continuing in Chicago as we speak. And so we'll keep you up to date of what's going on right now. And so one of the things that I want to do right now is bring up some folks as well. And so L. Joy Williams, she is, of course, with the Brooklyn chapter of the NAACP. And so I want to bring her up right now. L. Joy? L. Joy? So I want to bring her up right now. She, of course, has been very active in the Brooklyn chapter, also working to get black women elected to various offices as well as across the country. And so she's going to join us. She's going to join us right now. We'll chat with her. She was part of the panel I moderated yesterday dealing with Black Votes Matter. And so here she goes. I'll go ahead and take a seat. How's it going? All good. All good. And so yesterday, folks, if you saw the live stream yesterday, it was pretty funny. And so we talked about the issue of voting, and L. Joy said that she is a standard that when she is dating somebody, if the brother don't vote, she will end the date immediately.
Yes, I'm married now, but before then, it was. I mean, I brought it up as a topic of conversation in the first date because for me, I needed to know that you were tied or connected to a community, you understood the importance of voting, yeah, it's been some funny interactions.
I'm quite sure. Obviously, the whole issue of voting is dominating this particular conference. It is a part of the theme as well. And what do you see on the ground in terms of what are you hearing from people? A recent poll came out. Slate did a poll where they showed that, but it was between Democrats and Republicans, that Democrats are a lot more energized and focused on voting in November than Republicans are. And it's anywhere from a 7 to a 10-point gap. So just your thoughts.
Yeah, really in Brooklyn and in New York State overall, our voter turnout has been trending downward for some time. And it's a real issue. I mean, one, we have some of the worst voter suppression laws in New York State anyway, right? Even people being able to switch parties, you have to do that 13 months before an election. So even people who want to be engaged, there are barriers that prevent them from being able to do that. But more importantly is that people don't have the education and people are not making the connection to folks on why they need to vote. Because actually in Brooklyn and in New York City, we don't really have that much of a registration problem. It's a turnout problem, right? People being able to, one, vote in the primary, which is really our election in New York City because Democrats are 6-1 in the city, and yet we're experiencing so many of these issues.
So explain that, though.
Yeah.
So if Democrats are in control of the apparatus there, then why is it such a hard problem voting?
Well, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what party. When you're in power, you want to stay in power. And so it doesn't behoove anyone so they can talk a good game and join the rallies and say, yeah, we need to, change all of these laws. But at the end of the day, they don't go into the state legislature and make that happen. And we just saw that recently where they ended, finished session for the summer without addressing it, even though the governor said put it in his budget at that point. And so at the end of the day, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Green Party, or whatever, at a certain point, people want to maintain power. And, people can think about, well, if I have a same-day registration, I won't know who comes to the polls on Election Day, right? So that makes it difficult. That means I have to be accountable, more than just to a subsection of folks. I have to actually do my job in its entirety. And really, that's why people sort of feel this disconnect. They feel like, well, they're not going to do anything anyway. And what we talked about on that panel is when you demonstrate to people those small victories, when they can go to the council meeting, when they can go to the mayor's office and demand something change, or in their school, and then they begin to get that taste that if I get involved civically at some point that I can make a difference, then it's much easier to move them up the ladder of engagement.
Let's talk about Higher Heights. And so explain to folks exactly what that is and what it entails.
Yeah, Higher Heights for America is a national organization that is engaging Black women in political leadership at all levels of engagement. And that is the woman who is running for office for the first time, whether they're running for mayor in the top 100 cities, you're running for Congress, or running for governor, in the case of Stacey Abrams. But then also helping women to organize and engage in their communities where there aren't opportunities for Black women to engage. And that may be challenging the local Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And so we provide financial resources and helping to raise awareness about their races, and then also helping women engage on the issues to help them register and engage people in their communities.
All right, so for some folks out there watching live stream, how can they help?
You can go to Higher Heights for America. That's Higher, HIGHER, HEIGHTSFOR America.org.
Yes, we had a spelling challenge yesterday. I'm kind of like, don't assume folks know how to spell this stuff.
Yes.
Always got to hit them. Always got to hit them with the website. Last question. What are some of the interesting things that the Brooklyn NAACP is doing?
Civic engagement, our civic engagement committee is stellar. Like you talked about using data. We believe in using data in Brooklyn, and so using the VAN, which is the Voter Activation Network, calling people to engage them. So if you live in Brooklyn and you haven't voted since Obama, chances are you getting a call from a Brooklyn NAACP volunteer. And to that point, we need you to volunteer, to call other people and engage them in the overall process. We are definitely engaged. We just finished a campaign where we were passed legislation on the city level, a part of a coalition called the Right to Know Act, so that if a cop stops you and it doesn't result in the arrest, he has to give you a card with his badge number, his precinct number, and information. and partly because a lot of people would get stopped, and even if you want to make a complaint, you don't know who stopped you.
Right.
And so being able to include that information, and that was a long battle, but we were able to be part of that coalition and make it happen. And all of those things are what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I'm giving the charge here tomorrow morning to the delegates.
Okay.
And talking about those things that we need to get back to, right? Our mission was never to win the hearts and minds of racists and bigots. I don't need your hearts and minds. What I need is laws on the books to make sure to protect me and my property from you if you want to be racist. And so that policy, those legislation, if we engage people that way and knowing that they can actually change and make laws and policy on the books, that level of engagement, we can bring them up the ladder more frequently.
All right. El Joe, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. First of all, somebody else they posted. What does the L stand for?
That is a secret. That is a real secret.
She was a secret.
It is a secret.
You can't walk around talking about L. Joy Williams
I have bosses
going to ask what the
who
L
have
is.
been trying to figure it out for the longest. Just know my family from the South.
I think the L is for Lula. I think she was named Lula Joy Williams, and I think she can't stand Lula, and I think she said it's going to be L. Joy. I know I'm close because she just said it from the South. I know it's something like that.
President Nelson addressed the media.
I'm not going to confirm or deny.
And see, it was just like if it was Ethel. She would be E. Joy Williams.
The other thing is that a lot of my political heroes had that first initial and then their middle name, like C. Virginia Fields, H. Carl McCall.
Yeah, they had that because they had them country Southern names too.
Yeah, and my family's from North Carolina, so.
Lula Joy Williams. I would appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks, you just heard him, so appreciate it. Thanks so much. We're going to switch her out. We just heard him speak from the stage. Now I want to bring in Gary Bledsoe. He, of course, is the longtime head of the Texas State Conference of the NAACP. Gary, we are here in our home state. Glad to see you. And you can see you got the bolo tie going. I see you.
Take the old boy out of the country, but not the country out of the old boy.
So let's talk about what is happening here. We talk about the issue of voting. Texas is one of those hotly contested battleground states, battling the federal courts, the Trump administration, and the legislature over voter ID law, which 5 federal judges said was discriminatory in this particular state. What is it looking like moving towards the midterms?
Well, in Texas, we have gerrymandered districts. We just lost in front of the United States Supreme Court in a decision that we completely disagree with. We think that the majority opinion did not give truth to the facts of the case and simply found a way to decide for the state and decided that because the Attorney General Abbott had recommended that they simply adopt the interim plan by the court, as the best way to comply with the Voting Rights Act, that meant that they didn't intend to discriminate when they did. So we thought that was pretty skewed reasoning, but we ended up losing, and so that puts us in a very difficult position because I think that with that decision, I think Texas and other states realize that they have some wide latitude with the Supreme Court in terms of things that they might do. And so I think that we're going to be there and we're going to be fighting. But the Fifth Circuit just approved their voter ID law in its opinion that the new amended law, SB 25, not the old SB 14, that was the basis for the litigation where we had prevailed because it was clearly discriminatory. And Senate Bill 25 is simply another version of Senate Bill 14, but we lost on the intentional discrimination claim in reference to Senate Bill 14, and the court talked about SB 25 in its opinion. And I think they were dead wrong on SB 25, but it is, well, I guess SB 5. I keep saying 25. I always get that mixed up with the bill that the legislature passed that prohibited straight ticket voting. And so that's another thing that's being done to limit minority voting. So everything from, you take it from making it more difficult to get a driver's license, making it more difficult to get a voter ID, making it very difficult to, they're going to have to absentee ballots now, That's not the law, but we had counties that were actually requiring voter IDs for absentee ballots, which is not the law. So it's a complete process of trying to do everything to limit minority voting. The legislature changed the rules on who would supervise precinct elections or who would be able to handle the canvassing of the elections. So it's a complete process where they've gone after the whole mechanism. So there's so many ways that they come at the minority vote. You take 5% here, 3% here, 2% there, and pretty soon you have real numbers, and that's where